What is going on, Wealth Our Way Nation? It is your main man, Charles Tank Harris. We got an awesome show for you tonight. About to make everything rock and roll. Before we get started, you're going to see the beautiful artwork that's created by my live producer as we roll everything for you. Let's go. What is going on, Wealth Our Way Nation? It is your main man, Charles Tank Harris, the founder and chief visionary officer of the financial literacy platform, Wealth Our Way, where our motto is wealth is not only for the wealthy. I welcome each and every one of you to the Financial Power Hour. We have an amazing show lined up for you tonight. But before we get into any of that, I got to bless you all with the attitude of gratitude and say thank you to each and every one of you who are here with us as we stream live across our Facebook Wealth Our Way page and our YouTube Wealth Our Way Network page. Please subscribe to the Wealth Our Way Network page on YouTube if you haven't already. I also want to give that Wow Nation salute to all the members of Wealth Our Way Nation who watch the program pre-recorded overnight, over the weekends, wherever they can get their financial literacy fix. And of course, a heartfelt how are you to the good folks on the Life 101 platform who listen to the audio recording of this very here program. So this month, we are talking about the cost of love. In the Financial Power Hour, I pride myself on bringing the intersection of where finances meet life. And last month, we had a great series of speakers as we discussed sports and entertainment, how it affects our community, the fiscal nature of how ends are derived in that field. But this month, we're going to get down to the nitty gritty. We're going to get down to what really matters, how it happens in our households. We're going to talk about love and money. So this particular week, I got a panel of guests who are going to talk about the cost of dating. And I guess you guys have really spiked my interest in this topic on 15 Minutes of Finance, talking about the balance between courting and trying to be fiscally responsible. So we're going to hear from people who are actually in the dating scene, in that field of trying to figure out, is he or she for me? And before I make sure I make a long-term commitment, I got to check their financial facts and make sure that we're like-minded and kindred spirits. So tonight I'm going to bring on three dynamic guests. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and we're going to start with all of them out here on the cover sheet here. What do we have here? The lovely Dayanna Reeves, who has been with us in the past, my good friend and business associate, Christina Blackburn, and my homie, Mr. Philadelphia, Mr. Everybody knows him. He's out here in these streets at all the social events and the business networking, Donavan West. So good evening, people, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So I'm going to just do a complete gender backwards here, and I'm going to let Donavan introduce himself first because, as I get more and more sensitive and more connected with 2022 and beyond, and I lose some of my caveman ways, I got to stop saying ladies first, things of that nature. Everybody gets equal respect here on Financial Power Hour. So, Brother Donavan, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, Tank. First of all, thanks for having me. And second of all, thanks for throwing me in the fire. You know what I mean? Because now the lady's going to be looking at me like, oh, you're going to go before us? Really? Is that what we're going to do? Is that how we're going to kick this off? Is that what we're going to do right now? So I don't want to see y'all outside, ladies. None of that. I don't want no smoke. I'm just listening to Tank. No, I'm just messing around. My name is Donavan West, and I do a lot of things. I have a couple of companies. One is called CCS, Culturally Congruent Solutions, where I focus on the DEI space, executive coaching, communication coaching, things of that nature. And then I have BBA, Black Business Accelerator, where I focus on amplifying ambition of Black and brown businesses. And you already know, Tank, I do a bunch of other things. I have a show, a radio show that I co-host with Carol Riddick. It's called Love and Life. And I'm on Instagram as well with the relationship script, where we talk about relationships and things of that nature. I've been relationship coaching for 12, 13 years in that space as well. So everything, whether I'm talking about business or I'm talking about your boo or bae, it all comes down to relationships. And I'm happy to jump in on this topic.
Glad to have you, good brother. So now I'll go alphabetical, and Dayanna, don't kill me, but you're a veteran of the show, so I got to bring you in as my hitter coming off the bench, cleaning up. But let's have the lovely Christina Blackburn introduce herself.
Hi, hello. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here this evening. Thank you, Tank, for inviting me. My name is Christina Blackburn. I'm the founder of Vanguard Medicine. We do training for first responders who deal with victims of violent crimes. And we essentially train them on how to be compassionate with someone who's been recently victimized. Yeah, that's a little bit about me and what I'm doing, working a little bit with Tank on some other projects. So I'm happy to be here this evening.
We love having you, Dayanna. Come on, boo. You know, I don't even like to give you no. I would normally Steve Nash it to the rim and let you slam it home, but you do this all day. You on the internet more than I am. So just bring us your beauty and your charm, love.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Dayanna Reeves. I am an entrepreneur, investor, and the founder of Millennials Making Sense. And I primarily work with nurses and healthcare professionals to help them build wealth through the stock market, their retirement plans, and real estate investing. So I'm happy to be here. This is one of my favorite topics to discuss. And I'm also recording on my Instagram Live. So I'm ready.
We love it. The craziness about this. So I do 15 minutes of finance. Used to do it every weekday. Now we're down to doing it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And this topic has come up. I've covered prenuptial agreements, postnuptial agreements, the ideology behind sitting down and getting financially aligned with your significant other. I think there are so many things, especially in this day and age of social media, that warrant a topic on finances and finding that love of your life. And the dating scene, as I hear it, it's rough out here, and it's rough in every age sector. I fortunately had the experience of dealing with people 60 plus, 40 to 60, 30 to 40, and then even the youngins. My daughter, Bria, shout out to my big baby, editor-in-chief of Temple Law, well-decorated young lady, just celebrated her 29th birthday. Said ain't nothing out in these streets for her. It's just crazy what is being expressed to me on every level. And I want you, ladies and gentlemen, tonight to really touch on both sides of it. I'll keep bringing the conversation back to a financial aspect, but really I want this to be something where our guests can chime in, where our audience can chime in about the various things we're seeing out here from an economic standpoint. So I'm going to start with the first question and just jump in as you see fit. Once again, I feel like you guys are all veterans, and if I need to moderate and mitigate, I will do so at that time. When you are looking to date, and I'm going to use the word date the way it's conventionally used, you're just meeting somebody, you want to get to know them better. However you get down dating, if you go hardcore after one date or 10 dates, we'll talk about that in a minute. But in this conventional sense of dating, you're going to go out with somebody. You're going to have coffee. You're going to do whatever. What in your mind is an ideal date from both a standpoint of creativity and where I'm very interested in the economic commitment to said date? So let's start with Dayanna. I'll bring it from reverse.
Yes. Okay, that's a great question. So an ideal date for me, especially if it's a first date, I'm really looking for something where we can connect. So most of the times, 9 times out of 10, that's either dinner or maybe a cute picnic or something, but something where we can have a honest and open conversation about, what we're looking for, because dating, you don't want to be wasting time either. So you want to do something where you can come together and you can have, that open and honest conversation. It doesn't have to be the most fanciest restaurant. I think that's really up to the guy, because typically myself as a female, I'm expecting a guy to plan these things out and, check with me on availability, and I just show up. So that's my take on it.
Can we get Donovan to chime in and tell us his thoughts on that?
No, I think it's a great idea. I mean, overall, I think it's good to, to say, hey, you know what, in terms of assignment, right? I think the guy should be in that space. I think it's important though that we talk about it first, because often we go into these spaces with expectations and we're not really explicit and detailed in terms of saying, you know what, from the rip, let me just tell you what my sense of what your role is in this space, right? And from that, then you can now be accountable now that I've told you, now that I've had that conversation with you. So we don't necessarily have that level of detail in our conversation initially. We kick it out, and what we typically do is we look at each other like, let me see if they do the right thing, if they say the right thing, and then maybe I'll give you a little bit more. So I think we should be a little bit more forthright in terms of the, the expectation. Now, the one thing that I would defer a little bit on, and that is, from my perspective, I'm listening. I have a real simple but profound philosophy, at least in my mind, and that is I listen to lead. So I'm listening for what type of event would be the best kind of event, what kind of restaurant would be the best kind of restaurant. So if you bring up that you enjoy Chili's or Applebee's and things of the nature, like you really get into those apps like that, then okay, let's rock out there and we'll try out some new stuff that they got or something. Or if you're talking that Del Frisco stuff or you talking steak, okay, I mean, but ultimately, I want to be a good listener. I want to demonstrate that I'm listening. So I think men, while they're called to lead in many ways, you got to listen first so that you can lead effectively. I think that's where you should start. Now, in terms of bringing it into the finance, I think it's important also that you don't get out there unless you can play. Like if you can't pay, if you can't pay for, steak 48 or whatever, then don't go out there into that space. Don't do that. But again, if you are listening and you say, you know what, my idea of a great date is something where, again, we can get to know each other. We can maybe experience something different together, because that's building something that's unique. If we learn something together or we're doing something we haven't done before together, that also makes that situation a little bit more unique. And then if we again have the opportunity to just learn a little bit more about like what makes you uniquely you and what makes me uniquely me, and hopefully we're creating the kind of space where we can keep the dialogue going in a way that's more transparent, as opposed to the representative, right? That's just coming through just with their Easter Sunday gear on and everything else, and the money they've been saved up under the bed. Like, stop. I'm sorry, bro. I'm gonna stop right there. But too many people doing too much out here. Like,
we don't want, as my man Jiggaman once said, we don't want any frog willies at the crack table gambling their re-up. You don't want to have people saved every. I don't go on Carnival cruises. Let's just, Big Tank's bouginess is going to come out right now. I don't want to go on a cruise with anybody who's been saving $15 a month for the last 4 years to go on a cruise. There should be a cruise line for those people. Because a lot of my family are on that cruise, but I'm not going to be on that cruise because you got to know how to act. Christina, I want to steal your thunder. What's your take on that first date conversation, that first date range of comfort?
So I think for me, the first thing is I like to have a little bit of time. Like, don't call me the night before and say, hey, can we go out for whatever tomorrow? So I like a little bit of time in there. So at least a week, or like, at least 4 or 5 days, so I can prepare and plan and get myself together and, whatever I might have going on to make sure I have availability. I think it's good. But for my first date, I like to keep it simple. So like even just going to like a cafe for coffee, or maybe like out to like happy hour for just a drink, something quick, to see if there's chemistry there, because chemistry is big for me. And I don't want to have to sit through a whole dinner if the whole time you're going to be talking about yourself, right? You're not going to ask me any questions about me. And then you might have something planned for us to do afterwards, and I'm going to have to be like, I won't be doing that, right? So instead, I like to do something quick and simple so I can fill you out, listen to what you're about, listen to where you're going, what you're doing right now. And then from there, I can decide whether I want to go on a second date with you or not. Or, if you're feeling me, because I'm a special kind of person, right? So you might not be feeling me. So it's just a time for you to just like relax and really quickly, maybe an hour conversation, not too in depth, but just to see if there's chemistry. That makes sense.
Speaking of chemistry, I'm loving the sky blue North Carolina fingernails. I see you matching my man Donovan's shirt over there. I'm not matchmaking. I just see it happening. I just see what's going on here. So with that being said, here's something. So I got everybody know that one of the things that I believe endears me to the audience is my ability just to completely come on here and tell all my business at any given point in time. So with that being said, everyone knows I have 6 children, and 5 oldest are girls and the youngest is a boy. So my son is 14 years old and he's talking about girls, and dad is trying to school him, and he'll never be me. I'm just playing. He's a very charismatic cat. He's going to be somebody. But what I tell him is, and it kind of, I didn't hear it from any of the 3 of you, so I want to throw this out there and get your response. I tell him first date better not cost him a dime. I said, there are parks to go to. There are museums that are free. Don't make an investment on a first date, because I'm a financial professional. I have an expectation of return on every dime I put out in the street. So if I'm paying for steak 48, it's going to be something staking later on. So we got to make sure that my investment is in line with the expectation. So I tell them, hey man, it's a date. If you're going to go date somebody, go for a walk, be able to talk, movies are horrible first dates. You want to sit up there and spend 2 hours not talking. Be somewhere where you can learn who this person is. What are your thoughts on that? I'm curious from the female perspective as well as the male perspective. What are your thoughts if a cat hits you with the, hey, let's go play tennis for our first date, or let's go walk in the park, or let's go to art museum free Wednesday night? Whoever wants to jump on that first.
Sure, I'll go ahead and jump out there. I agree 1,001%. And as a person who also has a financial background back in the day, my first gig out of college was in the financial space. So I overstand, not just for the reputation or brand that you're trying to create, but more so from the standpoint of this has got to be built on content, like real rap. And if it's built on this presentation that we're putting together for each other, then that's false. That's going to be strategic, and it's going to be lacking all types of organic energy, right? It's going to be really about, okay, what else do I need to do for the next act? And just having a conversation at the end of the day, at some point, regardless of how many restaurants we go to, how many places and spaces that we occupy, we're going to have to talk. Like, even if it gets back to the intimate space, after sex, we're going to just look at each other and just start scrolling again. Like, you have to talk at some point. So I think at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. Being more focused on it. However, I will just say, if part of that, in terms of just the interaction, the person that you're talking to, they would like to go out, then okay, if you can't cook, yes, sacrifice and spend some bread if that's something you want to put a part of that, right? Because you do have a lot of foodies. We are in Philadelphia where there's tons of restaurants, and there are a lot of people that really thoroughly enjoy that. But I would just try to make sure ultimately you have a lot of quality time in that initial couple of days. And another thing that was mentioned earlier, coffee dates, all day. I mean, have that coffee date, have that quick little, let me just, I'm sticking a toe in, and you're like, you know what? Something you said in that second sentence kind of hit me the wrong way. And for that reason, like Shark Tank, I'm out. Like,
you don't know the difference in your theirs. You don't know when to use the apostrophe or the IEI. I cannot deal with you. And that shouldn't cost me $142 to find out you don't know that there and there and there are 3 different words.
You already paid for your education. That's right.
Dayanna, what do you think on that, love?
Yes, so I have mixed feelings and mixed reviews about it. Typically when I'm dating, whether that's I'm online dating, because I am not opposed to online dating, whether someone put me on to a friend and we're texting, but I typically try to get to know the person for a little bit prior to even meeting them in person. So if I get to know you, for a week or 2 weeks, and I feel like we're vibing, then that first official date, I am expecting you to spend some money. I'm not expecting, to go to the park. I don't want to take a walk with you. I work out 5 times a week. I don't feel like going for a walk. I want to go and, I'm a foodie, like Donavan mentioned. I want to go and have a nice meal or a nice drink. That's probably my preference for like a first date, but I do some of that vetting prior to. I'm not just wasting my time going on an open date with someone if I haven't done some vetting prior. So that's where my expectation comes from.
I appreciate that. Christina, what are your thoughts there?
So I like the creativity part of it. I like the art museum or taking a walk. I'm fine with that. I really like that, because I feel like I've done that too, where like ahead of time, like we might have phone conversations, or even my kind of like Zoom meetings or whatever, we're talking. But then actually when you sit in front of that person is different, right? It's just different being in front of them like that. And I think you get a different vibe from them, and you can hear what they're talking about. And a lot of times when you're face to face with someone, they'll start disclosing other things that they might not have talked about before. And so you can get to know them a little bit deeper. So yeah, I like the creative, doing something different. It doesn't always have to be food involved, because I feel like, that's going to come later. And there's only, like, I don't like having people over to my house until I really know you, and I'm not going to your house until I really, you ain't going to be cooking for me or anything like that on our first or second date. So it's only so many restaurants you can go to. So at some point, they're going to have to get creative with something else that we can do. And I honestly haven't seen that much. It's usually, let's go out to a restaurant, or, let's go to a cafe. I've never really heard anybody say, well, let's go to the art museum, or let's take a walk. Like,
be different, throw it out there in something new. Don't be like everybody else. So here's the thing, and my audience knows this, my people know this. I'm a bit of a splurger and a baller, and as my man Drake said, I used to save him with a cape and a mask. I slowed down in my old age, but the reality is what I'm trying to teach my son goes 180 degrees different from what I've done in my life, because I look at the mathematics of everything. At this point in my life, it's just a habit. Sometimes it's annoying, but I'm taking you out to go eat. And let's say we're not hitting Capitol Grill or, Del Frisco's. We're just going to a nice Mexican place or an Asian spot. It's 80 to 110, based on what we're doing with the right tip and all of that. And now we're back to the word dating here. If I'm dating, I may have 3 dates in a week. Now I'm 240 to 330. And I not only think that's hurting the normal man's budget, but also if I'm a woman and I'm looking at this man, I'm thinking that's fiscally irresponsible. Like, if this is going to be somebody I want to be with, I don't want to be with someone who would spend money that frivolously. And I'm curious to hear your take on it from that perspective of, does it become myopic? The view become myopic, and you only concern yourself with keep it real, with what's going on with me at this date? Or are you looking bigger picture and saying, hey, I got 2 other dudes that take me out. I'm sure a dude is taking 2 other girls out. How much money is he spending on date? Or is that very attractive? Like, he got it. So I'll go out with this cat because he can take 3 women out on dates. What do you ladies think about that? And Donovan, by all means, bring us home on the rear after we let the ladies address that.
I think personally, I am looking from like a me perspective to keep it all the way 100. I'm typically looking, I haven't looked that other way, but that is an interesting perspective as far as like, okay, well, if he's doing this 3 times, 4 times a week, he is probably, not that good with spending, managing his money, or maybe he do got it like that. Who knows? But it's funny that you mentioned that, because I actually stopped dealing with the guy because I thought he spent too much money in a club. And notice, I hope he's not on my live right now. It's gonna be
she was high on her own live. That's
I hope he's not on my live. But yeah, so I get it from that perspective now that you mention it. But in all honesty, I'm typically not looking. I'm more so looking like, okay, well, if a man is dating, I feel like he needs to have a budget for his dating. Like, if he want to date 3-4 people, then sir, you're gonna have to budget. If you don't have that coming in within your salary, you got Uber, Lyft, Instacart, you got other means to make it happen. So that's really the lens that I'm looking for from. But I did stop talking to that guy because he spent too much money in the club, and hopefully he's not on my live right now.
She is sending cats to gig economies to take her out. I love it, Dayanna. I'm glad I'm 52. I'm glad I've aged out of the dating scene of that level, because she's like, yo, look, if you can't take me out the right way, you can Instacart. I thought she was going a whole different direction. Like, you can Instacart groceries in to cook for her. She's like, no, you will go to work to come take me out. I love it. Christina, what do you think on that?
I guess I've never thought about whether he's taking other women out and how much he's spending. You better not be talking to me about that. I'm saying, like, when you're in front of me, you need to act like I'm number one, and you're totally focused on me. I shouldn't be hearing about like other dates that you have going on. I shouldn't know anything about that. So yeah, and honestly, when I do get to the stage where, okay, I like you, we go to a second date, we might go to a restaurant, I always offer to pay half because I still don't know where this is going, and I don't want you to think that you're going to expect anything, right, for paying for dinner.
Does dude have any chance of talking to you again, though, if he takes you up on the hat? Look at Dayanna, like, no. Like, is there any chance that you are letting this Negro call you again? Or, let's be real, maybe non-Negro, whoever you're dating, if he does takes you up on the half, are you ever breaking bread or breaking anything else with him in the future?
No, I mean, if I offer, I'm genuinely fine with it because then it just makes me more comfortable because I feel like when a guy starts paying for 2, 3, 4 dates, he's expecting something. And I don't want you to expect anything if I'm not willing to give up anything, right? So I'm fine with paying half. You know what is a kind of a deal breaker though for me that I've found recently? Like if we're out at a restaurant and say he walks me to my car and he says, well, can you give me a ride to my car after walking me to my car? That's a deal breaker for me. Like you can't walk to your car. Like, I don't know. I just don't like dudes getting in my car that I don't know like that. Maybe I'm just too private. I don't know. But
there's a lot of safety issues there. I respect that. And I tell my son that and my daughters that I'm a former bodyguard. So safety always, and I'm 6'4", 400 pounds. Like I walk into every situation thinking this woman's like, yo, I hope I don't piss this dude off. And he decide he wants something from me. Like, so I'm very gentle giant, cognizant of my size whenever I'm in a situation with someone. So I get that. Safety first. But I think you're approaching it from a privacy and maybe he's being lazy or whatever. All of those could be red flags, though. I get it. Okay. Donavan, what are your thoughts on that, man? We're talking about.
Or he could just want to, have a nice little situation in the car with you. I mean, I hear all the other stuff. I hear the security part. You're absolutely right. And Tank, same here. I'm 6'6", 300. So I get it, right? I walk around making sure not to make any sudden moves because I don't want you to start running away from me like a scene from Godzilla. It's not that situation, okay? I come in peace. But on the topic of budgeting, yeah, absolutely, man. You got to have a budget. If you're out here to play, you got to know what you're playing with. And if I go out and D is like, yo, I'm a steak 48 type person. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll see you. We did our date this month, and I'll see you next month, right? Because if that's what my money says, then that's what it says. I mean, and maybe she respects the fact that, and maybe this goes to another topic too, by the way, and that is the level of transparency we're willing to talk about what we're doing with the rest of our mony. So I can sit here and say, I'll have a conversation and I'll say, listen, there's no, I'm not lying. Look, I have a project that I'm working on right now. And that project is taking a lot of my liquid. I mean, that's how I'm moving. And when that project's done, I'm going to have a lot of liquid back, but I'm about to do something else with that liquid. So I have this thing, it's called vision. It's unique, but I'm more than willing to share it with you. And so it does require that. No, I'm not going to be at Del Frisco's as much as I used to be. And Tank, I was there regularly holding up that bar.
You used to hold it down up in that jaw.
And that's not to brag. That's also actually embarrassing at times because it's like that's serious. That's mortgage money we're spending at that bar, right? Enjoying it is coming in a certain kind of way. You're moving a certain kind of way, but ultimately knowing what your season is financially as well. So if my season right now, as I'm dating, I got to make sure that I'm moving in a certain way. Well, let me look at that date. And like you said, Tank, if it normally looked like 3 dates this week, maybe it's 1, right? Or maybe it's 2. And I don't even know anybody. If you're going on 3 dates, you got too much time on your hands anyway, by the way. Real
there
talk.
It is. It's
all
more,
shade. Any of y'all that got some, y'all come to my IG and talk. I don't care. You got too much time. You should be doing something else. You should be talking to my man Tank about doing something else with that time.
No doubt. It's more to me right now, so let me, once again, and this is not something that my audience doesn't know. I'm separated from my spouse right now. I'm in Georgia. Made a decision to come down here and spend more time with my son and my older daughters. But before that even happened, some things were happening in the marriage. We got separated, but I'm committed to trying to make my marriage work. So, I got divorced from my first wife of 17 years and I bounced like gang on that one. So I said on the second one, let's put the work in. Let's really see if I find when you do something once, it becomes easier to do a second time. So it's real easy just to quit on it. I said, I'm not going to do that. So I started a a procedure with my wife that I would take her on dates. So it's funny, we're talking about dating, but because of the distance, it's a once a month date. Now it's normally like a what they call them, a datecation. Like we'll go away, we'll have a date. So I'll take her somewhere. So this recently, she had a conference in San Diego, and I dipped out to San Diego to meet her. And I was telling her, and this is something you can say to your wife, even if you're dating, that you may not say to a non-wife that you're dating, because to Donovan's point, how transparent are we going to be? And then I always sound like I'm talking about, I always have to use a precursor that I don't mean to brag when I talk about money. So with her, she knows it's not bragging, but I spent $3,500 this weekend, and it was 5 days. So $3,500. And I'm like, where do they do that at? Like, who just spends $3,500? I'm a big dude, so I'm not flying across I don't fly anywhere not first class, but I'm definitely not flying across the country not first class. So the flight was $1,150. I wanted to rent a Harley, go see one of my clients up in LA. The motorcycle was $650. We went to Nobu the first night, Del Frisco's the second night. The cheat meal was Cheesecake Factory. Like, I spent $3,400 and change. Now she wifey, so it's cool, but somebody else has to tell me where those types of dates make sense. When I'm seeing online that there are women who expect those types of dates early, maybe not first dates, but early in a relationship. I've even seen, and I want anyone to please chime in on this, whether you've done it yourself, know anybody who's done it yourself, even Donovan, if you've been approached about this. I've seen where women are asking men to cover their childcare for the date when they go out. Like, what is going on in the streets? Talk to me, please. Someone tell me something.
Honestly, that is interesting. I haven't heard that one yet, Tank. I haven't heard anyone ask for, babysitter money, but I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I don't have children. I can't really speak to that, but you do have some women who just can't find a babysitter. So if the man really wants to pursue them, they might offer something like an incentive, like I'll pay your babysitter $50 for the night. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be opposed to that. But again, I don't have children, so I can't speak on that aspect. But I think a lot of times men don't realize how much it actually costs the woman to get prepared for a date. So if you're having a certain expectation of a certain date, you may feel like that is because you look a certain way and you got to spend a certain amount of money on maintenance, your outfit, your makeup, your hair, your weave. Who knows? But I do know, women of that caliber that may be requesting certain dates just because of who they believe they are. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it. I mean, I am expecting certain types of dates, but I am a financial professional as well. So I do keep in mind people's finances. I'm not going to expect someone to spend $3,500 on me if we're not like in a serious, dating. Like, we got to be 6 to 12 months in for that.
Does that say the wrong thing? Does that say the wrong thing when somebody comes over the top like that? Does that make you feel uncomfortable?
It doesn't make me feel uncomfortable, but if you start in the relationship like that, don't get upset if I expect you to continue that. Because you're setting the tone by saying, all right, I'm gonna cash out on you. We're gonna go to Puerto Rico for our first date, and we're gonna spend $2,500. I might be expecting the next date to be a trip. So I think certain guys, they complain about, oh, women want this, women want that. But what are you leading with? What are you showing us in the beginning that you're about? I think that really sets the tone for if we're going to test certain things or not, just to be quite honest.
That makes sense. I want to hear from Donovan and Christina, but I do want to touch on one thing, because I got to say this about the quality of dates and the money. So for many years, I was a professional blackjack player. Everywhere I went was free. I'm talking about the penthouse at every hotel, free. The meals, Vegas, islands, limo drivers with the name in front picking us up, got reimbursed for my flight and Shorty's flight. So you may have been on a $7,000 date that cost me nothing. So I always want to make sure, because you bring up a valid point. Now that bar has been raised, I'm like, well, he spent $2,500. I spent nothing on you. I knew you had a good time, and I want you to act accordingly to the time I gave you. But I'm budgeting over here. When I used to work with the Eagles, a lot of the Philadelphia Eagles were my clients. I used to get all of the stuff that I got wholesale because I brought so many of my clients places. I had a brand new Escalade with 22-inch rims and the new grill and all of that. And I paid the A-plan price for it and got the rims for free because 6 of my clients went and bought rims. So I'm balling on a budget sometimes, and that's not anybody's business but my own, so long as you're having a good time, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Donovan, what do you think about if a woman asks you to pay for her babysitting so you can take her out?
No problem. What's your Cash App? As a matter of fact, what kind of food do you think your kids would like while we're out? I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna send it all, and then I'm gonna say, hey, how about you stay home and just call it quality time with the kids? So I'm gonna, peace.
You just flipped it on it.
But it's all on me. It's all on me. No problem. Like whatever you want, got you. I'm DoorDashing or whatever you Uber Eats, whatever. No, here's the thing. If I'm doing that, and especially early, no, that's a red flag. Fellas can have red flags too. And if that's what you're doing in that space, remember at the end of the day, we didn't say anything about the meal that I'm paying for, right? Or whatever else I might do. I might just go ahead and get that new suit custom made. I may do some other things, get my head shiny, whatever. But the point is that I think ultimately we're both coming to the table with a certain amount of an investment. At the point where I'm already in your backyard, literally, in terms of, helping you navigate in that space. I think I'm doing a little too much that early. I think it's important that we do another thing. We establish value gradually. Like we got to be able to do that. So establishing value in terms of like, do I want to spend more time with you? Do I want to invest? Why am I paying for children that I'm not going to meet anytime soon? Like we got to think about that. What's your situation with the father of your child or children or whatever that situation is? What's all that? Let's talk about it. Let's get into a certain space and place where we can unload all this stuff. And I can talk to you also about, financially where I'm at, because I may, as my man just now said, as Tank talked about, you may have had an amazing experience, but let me also tell you about some of the backstory with that, so that next day you're not looking for another one of those experiences that look like we just won something off a game show, right? Like we can't all do it like Tank, right? So at the end of the day, if you do have that experience, providing the proper context so I can manage your expectations, that's the game I'm in.
I love that. I love that answer. Managing the expectations is always key and that's why the disclosure is there. Like, I think I would share with people as they were seeing me play cards. They're like, oh, how are you doing this? I said, oh, well, all of this is comped and this, I'm counting and this is this. So I think I would eventually share that. But early on, it was like, hey, I'm going away. I want company. You want to come, blah, blah, blah. And it would just be that. Christina, I want to get your take on the topic of, do you feel as though someone should be approached about paying for childcare to go out on a date? Because being sensitive to that, and then I want to go to one of Wild Nation has a question I want to ask you guys. But before we get to the question, Christina, I'm sensitive to the fact that if you are a single mom and you have babysitting expenses, let's keep it real. Like if I said we're going to go to Steak 48, and Steak 48 for two might be $250. You're like, hey, can we go to Chili's and you pay for my babysitter? Because I don't want you to go over your $250, but somebody got to watch these cats.
I can only speak for myself. Like I would not, if I can't pay a babysitter for a couple hours, like I need to be doing something else with my time other than trying to go on a date. Honestly, I would never ask a guy to cover childcare for me so we could go out on a date. I don't think that would be appropriate, but that's for me. Everybody's different. But say there was a mom who wanted to get out and she's like, hey, I can't go because the babysitter costs blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I'll get that for you. Then that's a different situation. He offers after I say, well, I'm not going to be able to go because babysitter's a little expensive and I really I don't even know how I would put my lips together to say I can't afford a babysitter because how expensive could the babysitter be that you can't go? Like I said, then you need to be working that second job or doing something else. But if he would be like, oh, okay, I'll cover that for you, then that would be a situation that might be okay. But I don't know. So that's just
I'm also going to think, and this is maybe the old man in me, from the It Takes a Village standpoint. one of your girlfriends wants to see you get out in these streets and have a good time, and they're gonna watch your kids for free. Like, all this, I need money for my babysitter. I may think you fleecing me at that point because
you,
I have
you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing one of your cousins ain't gonna watch your baby while you go out with Big Tank. I that's what I'm hearing. So
Tank, real talk, man. It's not about the money. It's about your infrastructure. Like, your infrastructure is shaky. I'm not about to cross that bridge. Like, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? I'm looking at it. I'm looking at your foundation, and I'm like, I see nothing but pebbles. Game over. Like, I'm back. I'm over here. Like, what are you talking, bro? We're from big bro to big bro. We check the foundation before we sit on anything. We're not doing that. You know what I mean? For that reason, I'm out.
I love the song Loyal. He said, I could make a broke chick rich, but I don't mess with broke chicks. Like, I'm not going to do it. You're not going to elevate off of me, but so long. It's just how it goes. My brother Arrion brought up an interesting question in the chat about toxic masculinity. I hate this phrase. I hate the phrase toxic masculinity, but basically what he said was, and my ace producer has put it up there for us. He says that some women would see the planning as dictating, as the taking too much of a lead as patriarchal behavior, and just not respond well to that. So I'm going to ask our ladies on the panel first. What are your thoughts there? Does it ever cross your mind that a dude may be just trying to do too much and be too bossy?
Christina, did you want to start?
I can jump in. I can't say I really run into it. I mean, most times the conversation about like, where would you like to go? And I'll like, well, what do you want to eat? Like, what are you in the mood for? So it's kind of like a back and forth. But if he just takes the reign and says like, we're going to go to this place, I'm okay with that, because there's usually stuff on the menu that you can find to eat. But now if he's like, well, I'm going to order this and I think you should order this, or I'm going to order for us both, I think that might be a little bit too much for me. But yeah, Tank, can you give me a little bit more context? Is that along the line?
So now it's great that you bring that second part up, because once again, my wife is brilliant. So my wife is a six-figure earner. We run businesses together. It's what makes the separation a little touchy. But we do some things. But she has told me on many occasions, the minute she is in my presence, she shuts all that off. She's like, I'm with the king. Like, I don't have to think about or worry about anything. So she'll be like, what do you think I should eat? What do you know? But that's, once again, this is my woman at this point. On a date, would that be deemed as heavy-handed? Hey, I've been here before, boo. This is a good wine for you. And this is this. And this is this. At what point does it go from, oh, he's being a man, and Lord knows what that means these days, to this Negro better sit back and let me order these ribs I want? Like, what's going on here?
I guess it depends on his approach, right? It just depends on how he comes off. If I feel like he's okay, so first of all, you've been here before. Are you trying to say that you've been here with another female? Like, I'm just like, where are you coming at me? You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think that would be a little bit too much for me. I'd be like, hey, I can figure some stuff out on my own. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not, like you said, that's your wife. So that's a little bit different situation. You guys know each other. She knows that you know what she likes, right? And in that situation, if we have been together for some time and he knows what I like, then of course I would let him order for me. I'm like, just get what I normally get or whatever. But if it's early and new, I think you should take my thoughts into consideration and be cognizant of what I want, because then that shows me also where this relationship might be going. Like, are you going to be too domineering down the road? So
I love that. Dayanna, what do you think about that?
Yes, so I don't have a problem with a man leading in that way and planning everything. The only thing that I would request is that you get some advance notice from me, because I do have my dates booked in advance. We can only be spontaneous if we on that level, and you'll know if we on that level or not. But book in advance so that I know, and then give me some context as to where we're going. So if you're trying to have me go and bungee jump out the plane and you're not telling me you're gonna get there and be embarrassed because I'm afraid of heights and I'm not jumping out nobody's plane. So if you're doing that, then that's like too far. But if you're like, okay, well, this is the time of day I want to meet, we're going. You don't even have to tell me where we're going. Just let me know we're going to dinner or we're going to a wine tasting, just so I can have my outfit ready. But aside from that, you could take the lead, because honestly, after my days, I don't want to have to think about nothing. Like, so I'm okay with that, with the man leading in that way.
Donavan, I like I said, I know you personally, brother, and I know you are a together dude. You are not like some of these cats in these streets that I'm hearing about, unfortunately, and seeing. I mentor some cats, and I'm like, man, if it wasn't for charity, you guys would never have a woman. But you're not that cat, so you can come across, I'm sure, as being so together that you probably get painted with that brush that I might get painted at, like, who does this dude think he is? He just think he know this and know that and know this. Do you get that, and how do you handle it?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why, my philosophy, listen to lead, period. So if I'm leading you, it needs to demonstrate also in my leadership that I'm listening to you. So, if I suggest something for you to drink, it's only because we talked earlier and you said how you like your wine sweet but dry. So, you know what, let's go ahead and pull up that California, that 42, and, try that out. And I would say, you know what, let's try out those 3 based off of what you told me, or unless you're feeling like something different this evening. So it's about just communicating in a way that shows that you are interested, you're engaged, right? And that most of all, that you're listening. So even as you're providing some level of leadership, that is coming from a good place. When we talk about masculinity, it's sad that it has to always be toxic masculinity, right? It's never just masculinity or healthy masculinity. And so being a man today is you're just under fire. I mean, I don't make any apologies for my appendages, but it's crazy out here how people are moving, because anything that does show some level of, aggression, or
Did you say appendage?
facts. Slow that down.
It went real right from PG-13. It escalated quickly.
Listen.
I ain't no apology for it either.
Listen, like rappers do, like, slow that down. Let's slow that down. You gonna rewind a lot of these parts and be like, yo, wait, did he just, like, bro, I got double and triples in here. Anyway, so pun intended. Anyway, so moving right along. But my point is, ultimately, I think that we're under fire. And it's important that we also, especially as men and women, walk into the space saying, okay, what's so much of the dialogue and the narrative that also creates these scripts for how we tend to look at each other in these lenses, right, by which we interact with one another, and how do we actually break some of that to say, oh, you know what, you're not actually what I anticipated, or what I'm hearing, or the last 20 things that I saw on my feed, or X, Y, and Z. You're actually who you are, right? So I think we need to challenge each other to actually experience more, as opposed to all these prescriptions and notes that we're reading on how one another is moving nowadays.
I love that. Thank you, Brother Langston, for the compliment. Appreciate you. And I just wanted to take a second to thank everyone who's watching us, my normal Wild Nation cats. Love y'all. Y'all the family. And everyone who's jumping in from everyone's social network here, and just who stumbled across us. We appreciate you here. Please make sure you take an opportunity to check us out on the Wealth Our Way Network page and subscribe. And I am not sure if my assistant is in the chat dropping the information form that we always put in here to make sure that we get any information out to you that you may want from Wealth Our Way, from Financial Power Hour, or 15 Minutes of Finance. Had to throw that in there. With that being said, we got about 12. This conversation is flying because it's so juicy. I love it. We might have to do a second week of this during this month. I'm gonna see if you guys will come back for me. But I want to do 2 things before we bounce. Thing 1 is serious question, then we'll end on some levity. But the serious question is, when do we move to the money conversation in dating? When do we want to know, is this cat a 520 credit score dude, or is she on her 5th EBT card? Like, when do we start talking about this? I don't even know if you can have 5 EBT cards. I'm sorry. I grew up in the hood. I haven't been there in a while. I stopped through. I locked my doors. No, but go ahead. I'm sorry. Who wants to jump on that conversation for me? Dayanna, I'm gonna nominate you.
I'll go first. That's a tough question, and I typically don't think questions are tough, but that's a tough question. I'm looking at this point in my life is I'm looking for a partnership, and I'm looking for someone to be, financially stable. I'm looking for certain qualities, including finances. So if I'm going out on a first date with you and I think the vibe is going strong, honestly, I think I'm questioning things on the second date. Just to be quite honest, because I don't have time to waste. I don't want to be playing around with no frauds who acting like they got it and they don't. Like, let's get down to the bottom of it, because you can't spend me when you're talking about finances. So you could try to lie, but I'm gonna read right through you. So for me, it'll be in the very beginning, but it'll be somewhere around like the second date or so that I'm really, and I'm not gonna be all direct. I might, be like, well, how do you feel about credit? I might ask, little subtle questions just to get their ideas. Like, oh, well, I don't use credit. I don't know nothing about credit. I got to teach you. No, we're not doing that, because I had that experience. I done taught a bunch of people, and they ain't nowhere to be found. So I'm not teaching anymore. If you want me to teach you, you got to hit that link in the bio to book it. But you know what I mean? So we need to cut to the chase in the beginning. So between the second and the third date, we need to figure this out.
It's funny you say that. My daughter said the exact same thing, because she does this concept with her home called house hacking. She bought the house, rents out all her rooms, people paying her mortgage for it. She was out on a date with a guy, and all he wanted to talk about was how she did that. He's like, look, you can buy my ebook, boo. Like, we're not talking about that. Like, if you don't know how to get a house and handle this at this point, you're not the dude for me. Like, it was crazy. Christina, what are your thoughts on when do you find out what's going on? Is that your black card or your cousin's in your wallet?
You know what? I just listen to people, and you can kind of pick up on how long they've been at their job. Do they own their own home? Are their student loans paid off? Like, you can kind of pick up on things just by asking general questions. I don't typically like outright ask somebody like, how do you feel about credit, or what's your credit score, or anything like that. But I can pretty much pick up. And then when you visit, if you do get to that point where you're visiting his house, you can kind of see how, what he has going on. And you can kind of tell from there how somebody, or I might say something about saving, like, look, I'm really big on saving, and, for whatever I'm trying to get, how do you feel about that, or something like that? Like, just general things in the conversation, I think, will come up about finances, and you can get a feel for somebody if they're good with it or not. And then, like, just seeing what they have, right? Just kind of car they're driving. Are they, on public transportation? Depends on what city you're in, if that's okay or not. Where they live, their living situation, and just kind of how they handle themselves, how they're dressed. I think you could kind of like tell a little bit. But as far as like long-term finance, probably will come way down the road when we're like seriously dating and seriously talking about like moving in together, or something, that next step where we would have to start having that concrete conversation. I think about.
So you're not on a second date like Dayanna with the SSA Gov app. Like, can I see what you're going to make for Social Security?
On the second date, I don't even know if I like you yet. You know what I mean? Like, it takes me a while to like warm up to people and even see that if I want to continue this. So at first, for me, it's just fun. Like, I'm not trying to get that serious until, like, I don't know, until like we're ready to move to the next level and it's a discussion. Then I think, we would start talking about those type of things.
What were you going to say, Dayanna?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, because a lot of people be fraud. And then, like, for me, it's like I'm very intentional on what I want. So somebody might drive a nice car. They might have a nice house. They might have a nice apartment, but they might really be broke for real. And I deal with these people on the day-to-day, clients included. So it's like, I just need to know, like, straight up from the rip, because there's a lot of prospects out here. So I don't want you to be blocking someone else's blessings or you wasting my time. And like, I would hate to get 6 months, 12 months down the line and then find out that somebody was something that I thought that, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm just a very direct person, and I act in a nice way. I may seem a little bit, too hard right now, but
you perfect, boo. Don't worry about it. You good.
But I just rather cut to the chase in the beginning to avoid wasting time. Like, I'm not looking to have all of this fun with you. I need to know about stability and finances up front, because I can have fun with other people. You know what I mean? So But I definitely, I see it from all sides though. I think it's a personal opinion.
I love it. Yo,
But I have
brother
a question.
Donovan. I'm sorry, go ahead,
But I have a
Christina.
question. I have a question about that. But would the guy be honest, like on the second date? Do you think they're honest about that? I just quick
So
question.
I think they could be dishonest, but me just being in finance, the type of questions that I'm asking, the type of things I'm looking for, it's not really a way you can try to lie about it. Because if you tell me if I ask you a question about credit and you totally lost, then I know I got to teach you about credit. You know what I mean? Like I have certain requirements where I want my partner to be into similar things that I'm into so that we can thrive and build together. And if they're not on those things, it's fine, but they're just not the person for me.
I feel you.
So,
Brother D, and bring us home on this. We're not gonna get to the jokey joke later. We're gonna have you bring us up on this one.
It's all right. It's all right. I got a little jokey joke. I mean, in other words, Dayanna said, listen, if you're a cash money millionaire, the only thing you can hit is my bio. Well, that's it. Hit that link. That's it. That's it right there. So, but no, I think real talk, know what season you're in. When you're dating, you got to know what season you're in. Be honest with yourself. If you're really there looking for a long-term relationship and that's where you're going, cool. If you're just going out to just be entertained, know what that is. And that will dictate actually what your questions are. So if you're in that long-term space and that person's responding in that long-term space, cool. Is the second date a little early? I think it's a little early because ultimately what we have to do is you have to take inventory of his comfort zone. So I hear what your needs are, but remember, love starts with understanding the other and listening to the other. So take that person's temperature first and then go ahead and ask the question, maybe on the third date or whatever. But people come from it in different spaces is what I'm saying. And we have to allow just a little grace for us to be able to say, you know what? Hold on, maybe just a little bit later, but I'm going to get everything I need in terms of information. Maybe this person may need another moment or two to say, okay, oh, she's a real one. I get why she's asking it. I'm learning more about her and she's more financially inclined. And so that's where it's coming from versus everyone just trying to vet me and come from my money. You may not know that I had these other experiences in my past where these types of questions led to a traumatic experience. So we have to give each other grace for those types of things and look for the context and the backstory so that it can all come together. But again, if we have a little bit more grace and patience with one another, it'll all come to light. We just need to kind of just pump the brakes a little bit, ask the questions that are important to us early enough so that it can qualify our time and we can continue to move forward to the next stage. But I'm all for that transparency, because if we can talk about sex, we can talk about, credit. So why are we talking about how many bodies we got when we can't talk about, what our goals are, aspirations? Exactly. Like, let's talk about it. So if we can talk about those types of things, absolutely. I like the way that you served it up in terms of saying, what are your thoughts about credit? What are your thoughts about X, Y, and Z, and how you may, do you use credit cards and how would you use it? Do you know assets versus liabilities, or, what does that really mean to you in terms of how you move right now? That car is real nice, but what are your thoughts about other things that you're putting your money into, just in terms of just having a conversation? So and again, if you are looking at that person with that car, that flashy car, that may be a flag. No shots against those who have them nicely, right? Because I was one of those cats all day, right? Beamer Nation. But again, different seasons. Like if a person can't be flex and fluid in terms of how they move in that space, then that also can be a trigger. Because the one thing you want to do is, I may not be in love with all the things you're into, but I can be in love with your evolution. I'm gonna drop the mic on that.
I love it. Yo, you guys dropped so much tonight. I got to have you back later in the month. I'm doing a couple of other shows this month. I'm going to do one on co-parenting. I'm going to do one on couples that are in business together and how that is to work with your significant other and how that is. I'm having a family attorney talk about prenuptial agreements and things of that nature. But I want this panel back. Let me know, Wild Nation, what you think. I got to have these people back. You got to let them know that you're feeling the love. Follow them on their social media handles. We are already at an hour. I'm always respectful of everybody's time, so we're going to call it a night. Dayanna, Christina, Donovan, I thank you so very much for blessing us with your presence tonight. I wish you all the best in all of your endeavors and also out here in these social streets, because I know it's rough out here. It's a jungle sometimes. That's what Mama is benefiting from that. Because every time I look out the door, I be like, I'm done with her. Like, oh, it's nothing out. Okay, let me lock it. Let me go back in, see if I can make it work. Because it's crazy in these streets. So with that being said, we're going to sign out. The audience loves you. We want you back. Please, please tell me y'all to come back. Make me happy.
Yes, anytime, anytime.
You got it.
Yes,
You got it. Let's
Thank
do
you.
it.
Thank you. So with that being said, we didn't get Brother Langston's question for Dayanna as to what type of qualifying questions she asked. So we want to make sure that's going to lead part 2. Brother Langston, come back and find those questions out. And with that being said, I want you guys always to remember wealth is not only for the wealthy. Brother Zach, take us home.